In a lot of ways, I hate this movie. One, for it being strictly 2.5 episodes combined, and in the other one, basically representing a whole season that we didn't get. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, following our little series about Wake Up Girls, I'm going to be talking about the next entry in this series, Wake Up Girls, The Shadow of Youth, the second film, the one movie after the first season of the series that came out in September 2015. So before I even start, I have some disclaimers. Spoiler alert, I'll be talking about most of what happens in the movie, though I think I will not give exact details about stuff, but the general gist of it is pretty simple. So spoiler alert, if you are choosing to follow me in watching this series, please watch it like right now before listening to the rest of this episode, because at the very least this movie is, like the first one, pretty short, and it doesn't take much to actually get where everything goes. That being said, let's start with the stats. So Wake Up Girls Shadow of Youth came out in September 2015. It has 55 minutes of runtime. It was done basically by the same cast, same production crew. The studio is, as the other entries, or that with a partnership for animation of the studio. I think I will pronounce this wrong, but it's called Milipensi. I don't actually know how you pronounce this. It is a studio, a really, I would say, new studio, just founded in 2013, and it has worked on some other stuff before Wake Up Girls, but I think most notably the one work that they actually did was in part of animation of the 2016 Berserk series and some isekai stuff that came out around 2021, 2022, and so on and so forth, such as the isekai about the spider. I don't actually watch most of those stuff, so I don't actually have good judgment on their work, but easy to say, this movie at the very least has better animation than the first season and the first movie combined, so for what's worth, I think their work was well done. With that said, let's start with the story. So basically, the story is pretty simple. I think this review will be pretty short, all things considered. The story follows right after the ending of the first season of Wake Up Girls, where they have the representation of the I1 idol contest, and they actually lose, but then they get a proposal, a contract to be signed with a major recording label. I think it's called Beavis or Bivix, I don't actually remember. The thing is, right, so the first thing that actually happens, we actually see a remake, let's say, of the actual presentation. So we have one full insert song right at the beginning with Seven Girls War, the opening for the first season, and from then on we get how they actually signed the contract with the label and their, let's say, manager inside the label, basically the guy that manages the relation between the production company they work for, Greenleafs, and the label. So it's kind of he doesn't actually play much of a part in the ongoing of the story, but he comes as the messenger for some of the plot points that actually turn the story around and basically make the plot go forward. With that said, they sign up this contract, they get a major debut they basically get to plan the major debut of the group with the single of Seven Girls War, and from then on they get to actually basically have this relationship, and not only relationship, but this work schedule of actually start to work in Tokyo. They originally operate in Sendai, but now they are going to Tokyo because they signed up with a Tokyo label. So it comes with the contract that they have to actually have lessons in Tokyo. So they have like scheduled lives, shows in Tokyo with the label, and so on and so forth. They have their obligations to fulfill, and so on and so forth. The thing is, they start at the very beginning, they start to actually have this nagging thought of basically we are pouring all our eggs into Tokyo now, and we don't actually have manpower to operate in Sendai at the same time. So there's one point later in the movie that they actually get to actually talk with the guys that they have been working with for the best part of the first season. So the guys from the TV show they appeared on, and the guys from the radio station on Sendai, to actually basically finish their contracts. But it all comes with a rather, let's say, good parting. So they actually come with the, if you need anything, you can actually come back. If you actually don't get successful in Tokyo, maybe, I don't know, you can actually come back. We are always with our doors open, and it's pretty good. It's nice to see that after so much struggle in the first season, they actually get a bit of respite in the movie at the release. In this part, the movie starts really strong with the girls winning, so they get these lessons, the whole thing, training, and new appearances in Tokyo, and so on and so forth. And so they kind of adapt their schedule to working in Tokyo, and most of the girls are still studying in Sendai, so it comes with that hurdle of them, most of them at the release, having to live in a hotel, and some of them have to go back within the week to actually study and then come back to Tokyo to record something, to have lessons, and so on and so forth. With that said, the movie starts pretty strong with them actually having the recordings and getting their first single out. It actually goes really well, and then the first conflict of the movie happens when the producer from the label actually wants them to get a new song for a new single, especially made by Hayasaka, the composer that did Seven Girls War. And this is the point when the movie kind of goes into the first act low point, let's say. It's really hard to say that this movie has more than one act, because I think some of the plot points are really small, really not relevant to the plot in the big scheme of things. So it kind of becomes hard to say, but it is, let's say, for the most part, the major force that pushes this movie forward is that Hayasaka at this point denies to actually work with them. He denies to actually make a new song for them. We don't actually know the actual reason, but he straight up denies, and so it falls on to that one producer to actually find a way to actually do a new single, and from that try to strike lightning in the bottle, let's say, or twice in the same place. And the thing is, right, and this is the one phrase that basically seals the deal. He comes up with a song. The girls have their initial doubts like any other song, but then he says that it was made with market research in mind. From that point on, you can actually explode the whole plot inside out. You know what this is going to be about. And for that, at that moment, I actually thought, oh my god, this is actually getting too deep. I didn't think they would tackle such a... It's not really a huge topic, but it is such a difficult topic to actually try to tackle in a movie. And to be fair, it's not really well done, if I'm going to be really honest. They do it in a way that it is serviceable, but most of the scenes feel really rushed and like cut in way too early. Let's say some of the dialogue doesn't actually fit or doesn't feel right for the most part, where they actually start to try to actually discuss many of the things. One of the things that actually really grabbed my attention in this anime, and I'm already getting into my opinion here with talking about the story, but one of the things that really caught my attention is that there are so many parts where there are so many people talking at the same time, and at the same time there are scenes that nobody's talking, and the mood is kind of weird, which I don't know, man. It feels like they wanted more runtime, or maybe just another fucking season, because at this point, and this is a thing, this movie tackles so much stuff at the same time that I don't actually understand how they decide this was a movie, not another season, because they present a lot of stuff. So we have this first introduction to Tokyo, this first introduction to actually doing the real debut, the presentation to actual great big public events. This is one thing. And then we have the second song that comes out, and we have that whole process again. But then something goes wrong, and the CDs don't sell. And mind you, right, this anime is set in 2015, because it is 1 year after they started, and so on and so forth. The thing is, I don't know if people actually buy CDs in 2015. I don't actually remember anyone buying CDs in 2015. I mean, at that point, Spotify was already out. I think YouTube Music didn't exist, but still, most of the streaming services were already out. Most people that were still downloading music, I think, they don't have CDs anymore, by and large. I don't know if Japan is different in that regard, but still, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit congruent with the timeline that we live in, assuming this is the same timeline, right? Then from then on, the CD doesn't go well, the sales didn't hit their mark, and so the girls see the consequences of, let's say, failing their initial quotas. So they get lower ratings, lower appearances in events and programs and shows they have, so their work scale is diminished, so is the pay, and so on and so forth, till a certain point where the girls themselves start to try to sell their new CD, and the whole thing kind of becomes a whole struggle. It reminds me a lot of the first season, and how in a weird way it is kind of great to watch the girls struggle, because now they have at the very least that development that they know they are small, they know they have flaws, and they cannot afford to fail for the most part, but they go and fight for every sale, every fan. They go and try to fight it out and get that market share, and so on and so forth. In that regard, I think it is really nice, the whole setup, and for that I think the movie actually does a great work. And from then on, the whole thing kind of they take a lot of time to show some things that happen in the background. So for instance, Junko has someone dear to her that is in the hospital. We just have one scene and no explanation, so it doesn't really get any explanations whatsoever, but it is implied. Then the next thing is that Matsuda, at the very least, he had some kind of internal development where he actually likes his work now, more or less. We have one scene for that, and we have one scene that it is granted a better dialogue between Junko and the manager for I1. I think he's called Hirashi. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me on that. And basically she reminisces about having idol group like 30 years before, and Hirashi was the manager for them, but the group, for one reason or another, ended up with them disbanding, and so they have this little chit chat. We have a little of an appearance of the I1 crew, because at one point they appear with sales chart for one of the newest I1 singles, and the CD is the first one to not break 1 million copies sold in the first week. So they start a whole internal fight between Shiho, who is the current center, and one other girl, to actually try to make a competition so they can decide on a new center. And so we get this real, I would say, it's not major for the plot of the movie itself, but something that it is set up to the later entries, because we have one other movie and one other season. Basically, they set up that I1 has an internal struggle, and Shiho, as the main girl from I1, she will try to fight for her place as the center, and that is basically where we leave I1 for the whole movie. Then we go back to Wake Up Girls, and we have this whole arc where they are trying to sell their CDs, make a live that is a major live for the production label, where they call up all their artists, their contracted artists, to actually do multiple lives in the same day. And when the girls from Wake Up Girls go to present, most of the fans are not having it, going away, and so on and so forth. And one of the major things that happened in this part, and something that I've commented when I talked about the anime, there is this one character, at this point there are 4 or 5, I think, characters that are the otakus of Wake Up Girls. The main one is the glasses one, Ota, I don't actually know the surname, whatever. That to me, he's the insert for the audience. And when they debut Seven Girls War, it is so nice to see their energy, their vibing, because it is us audience actually vibing and cheering for the girls. And then when the second city hits and goes badly, there is this nagging sentiment that appears where maybe they shouldn't go to Tokyo, maybe they should go back to Sendai, maybe they sold out to marketing and stuff, and it reflects on him, which is, to me, at the release, a reflection of us, audience. And so it becomes really relatable, as he's suffering, we are suffering with him, because the girls we cheer for are not, like, they are struggling with something. And I think in that regard, it is pretty nice, pretty cute. And basically, at some point, Hayasaka, on a whim, he sees the girls kind of appearing in these TV shows that every other idol appears, and making whatever music and so on and so forth. And he never actually says anything, but it comes out with the same discussion that I mentioned in Girls Band Cry, that is creative vision against marketing success. And it comes out that their song was bad. Just so we are on the same page, this new song that they release and doesn't do well on the charts, we never actually listen to it, if to be honest. They never actually do the insert, nor we have the full song whatsoever. So it's meant to symbolize that although the music may be not bad, it is not theirs, and for that reason it's not good. And with that, seeing that, and then after Matsuda goes and talks to Hayasaka goes to see the girls, and they're actually training, they're actually trying to make the best of it. And in seeing that, let's say, that struggle, that effort they put in, he approaches them again, dares them again to participate in the New Year's, this new year 2015 idol competition, and presents them with a new song. And with that, they actually kind of start the insert for a new song. It is the ending for the movie, and from there the movie ends with a preview of the next movie that I will be covering next episode, that is Beyond the Bottom. And that is basically the story. So just to get out some of my opinions and some stuff that I need to talk about. First thing I want to talk about in this section is the one thing that actually strikes out of nowhere and has no explanation whatsoever. For one reason or another, Yoshino's design changes. I mean, her hairstyle changes right after their first presentation, at the beginning of the movie. Nobody comments on it. Nobody explains why. I have some theories why, but then again, it doesn't make sense. They never mention it. They never ask about it. It comes out of nowhere with no explanation whatsoever. Then the next thing, I think that this movie, all things considered, even though I think it's flawed in many ways with the plot. I think it's rushed. I think it tries to cover a lot of stuff without actually explaining anything. It is a big setup for a second season, even though I wanted this one to actually be a whole season in and of itself, because I think that there was material to actually explore here, because there are little arcs that appear a little before and they don't actually mention anything, though I think they could. I think the movie overall improved a lot on the anime. The animation, I think it's really smoother. It actually becomes good. Granted that some parts are not really that great. Some of the dialogue where there are only dialogue, no movement whatsoever. The animation is kind of rough, mainly with Matsuda, Junko, and people that are not the main girls. Outside of that, I think that the animation, especially for the dances, improved a lot. The actual dynamic movement of the characters, I think, improved a lot. The songs, we don't actually have much of anything regarding to music. We have 7 Girls War at the beginning to actually, I think, represent the opening, and the ending, I don't actually know the name of the song, but the ending actually sounds really good. The new song that they learned from Hayasuka, it's really nice. Being frank, I can't really give a verdict about the movie itself, because I think it's incomplete and it is a lot of setup to something that comes after. I have not still watched the next movie nor the second season, so I can't really give a predicament of what's about to happen and if it fits with this movie. But easy to say, the whole thing kind of does. The story is kind of rough, but outside of that, I think they tackled some nice stuff, all things considered, and the ongoing of the movie, for the most of it, it's pretty well done. The interactions of the girls are really nice. The ideas are really nice. The whole struggle between the success and the reality, and this whole arc of them actually having a dip with the real big leagues, and then they're realizing that they are still small fish, all things considered. And this whole dynamic that they have, I think it's really nice. I think for the most part, the girls are more realized as characters too in this movie, even though I think most of them don't actually have much screen time. For the most part, I would say the ones that have most of the screen time in this movie is still Airi and Mayu. Yoshino, for one reason or another, I think she doesn't actually have many lines whatsoever. Outside of that, the other girls have spread out dialogue and so on and so forth. And with that said, I finished this review feeling a bit, I don't know, incomplete, a bit underwhelmed. Even though I like a lot of this movie, the whole thing doesn't feel like they did a lot where they could have. It feels underdeveloped. I think 55 minutes is way too little for a movie. I think they should just release a few episodes more in a season. I don't know. I know syndication is a bit of a business, and the whole thing it's a whole nother story. But I really wish they had developed a bit more. I think they had material for it, and at the very least, in the basics where they were lacking in animation, and I think in art style they really got better. I think in general the color palette actually got really bright, and considering this is a movie, some of the design changes and design philosophies for the movie itself, you see, I think one of the things that jump out the most is Hayasuka using his glasses. He has actual reflections on his glasses, which is something that the anime didn't actually afford to do, and now every time he runs around there's reflection, which is not in a 3D way, but they actually add that detail at the release, which is nice. And for the most part, again, animation, I think it improved. The art style, I think, improved. I wish this were better developed when talking about story. I think music was not well presented. Let's say they could have at the release inserted the second song just to see, but at the same time I think that there would be a rift between the plot and the fans if the song was actually good, which, I mean, whatever. But then again, this movie is pretty good. This series itself, I hope the next few entries have something to actually make me love this one, or to prove that it was meant to end when it ended. And with that said, I hope you like listening to this review. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, depending on the platform you're in. Please like, please share, please follow. And I hope you stick around for next time. Bye.